I was thinking about unfair expectations on gender within the couple and the transactional value in relationships as key elements that sow discord.
Mm-hmm.
Your matriarch, she weaponizes the physical dynamic between them, and asserts herself more like by becoming more like him. And what I found interesting about her actions is like she's almost like a checkbook with plus and minuses. So I was wondering if you can cue us on the construction of the character, and also that if you were looking to tap into like a behavioralism that exists in the 80s, like today, we find ourselves like pay equity would be the cause or sequence from this.
I think she started as someone who is. I wanted to have a lead character who's complicated. You know, have many sides. Have someone who is, like of the land, works with her hands, is connected to animals, but loves to go out and put on the fur coat and put on the fake nails and to be both of those things. And I think a part of that just came out of wanting to, very simply wanting to have a very, diverse emotional life. And another part of that was related to the time and looking back at the time and examining the time as being a time that's sort of stuck in between, a post-war generation and now, and seeing it as a middle point of Allison has this set of expectations given to her from her mother and that generation. Then there's the social pressures that surround her, and what it means to be a wife. And then she also is, a businesswoman in her own right. And so she's between these places. I wouldn't say she's stuck between them because she's all of them. And I really wanted to have someone who is all of those things. And I think duality is, I'm finding, is one of the key things I want to explore in a character. And I think Rory has it, Allison has it, and even the kids go through a change. They experience, they're testing their own duality, and of course, it's central to Martha as well. So there's a real, I think, continuation of that character study.
There's a stand up and take notice moment for me in the film. It's you have we're witnessing this long take, and then you have the audacity to like insert two shots into the long take. I mean, you continue with this long take, but in that instance, I was like, why did Sean do this? And then I figured, oh, okay, for me, I was flash forwarding towards what these two children might look like as adults in that very juncture, that very moment. And you embed these children with an emotional intelligence where they not only understand toll and pain of their own, but also the family dynamic. They can relate to their parents on a level that I don't think cinema really taps into. So I was wondering if you can discuss their psychological profiles, and the nuance about absorbing pain, but also overcoming or dealing with the uprooting process of moving from an established, a familiar area to something that's new and possibly threatening in a way.
Yeah. That scene's a really interesting point. Because Matt and I, we made the decision pretty early that we were going to cut to the kids. But it was one of those moments in in the crafting of a movie where you're like, oh, we actually, this scene actually runs all the way through. Like, it's the kind of thing you might do a cutaway because you're linking two takes, and it's like, actually that's just the full scene. And so it was really difficult to make that choice to okay, we're going to go to these kids, and it's might feel like a cutaway, but it's not. But what we realized after really processing it was it was just a key moment to be like, the kids can hear. Kids hear everything. The kids know everything, and it's so much the movie's about is that parents say like it's okay, everything's okay, because they want to protect their kids. You know, we want to protect our children, and so we can be very unaware of the damage that we're doing by not admitting what's going on. And I just wanted to, you know, shed light on that,
because you do so with like, there's a couple of scenes with like just a cigarette butt collection, and you know, there's like a bedwetting snippet. Those are very overt, but in this moment, the stairs, it's so heavily nuanced, and like I just thought it was a brave choice to like put that there. But that's the thing. I think it works as a device to like further get into that psychological space. Or
I think in the moment it's so much about Rory and Allison and their fight, but then it's like the kids are a part of it. It is still, as much as the movie is focused on this relationship, it is about the family as a whole. And so it felt like in this key moment in the movie that we had to have the kids there hearing it. And I also think it's just on a visceral level, like it's something I think everyone remembers. You know, I think everyone remembers listening to their parents fight, you know, through a door, through the floor, or whatever.
The loving moments are sort of like a blur, whereas like whenever you have anything with discord, or like you remember specifically that moment that in your own personal timeline.
Yeah. Which is a lot of what I'm drawn to in general, just those like textures and details from childhood that are specific, but in their specificity become universal.
Whether walking towards, away from someone or someplace, displacement and distance are key elements in describing isolation in this film. And there's a beautiful reverse shot, where Jude's character and Carrie's character are at the opposite ends of a different frame. And so I was thinking about, you know, your work with Mátyás in terms of creating a blueprint and creating a mapping strategy and enhancing the characters' isolation from one another. I was wondering if you could delve into that strategy set with Mátyás.
It's funny, we approach things very differently. He is much more analytical and intellectual in the beginning of the conversation. He's like, he wants to know like who we're with, why, you know, and I'm very much like, at first I'm like, I don't want to talk about that, don't like, you know, don't ask me that, I'll just tell you how I feel. And so we find this amazing place in the middle, and we end up not really talking about it. You know, we have this sort of initial conversation, but when we're on set, we don't really talk. We just know. Like, we know what it is. We know what it needs to be, and we feel it out. We feel out the space, and we feel out the point of the movie. But a lot of it is just like a gut feeling of like where the camera should be at that moment. And some of it is planned in the script writing. Some of it is planned in scouting locations, and some of it is on the day. Are
all the sequences in their new domicile, is it? Did you shoot that chronologically, and therefore it perhaps informed?
We tried.
Okay.
We tried. We couldn't quite, but we tried. You know, we shot Jude's last scene on his last day. You know, as much as things like that, as much as we could. Yeah, and and tried to, definitely trying to keep as much of the space in order. And we shot the American part first, and we tried to build the family and stick to the, certainly the emotional chronology as much as possible.
Cool.
Yeah.
You're lucky that you got to do that. Again, going back to like the chamber piece aspects, the coloring is like, it feels as if you drained out all the color from those sequences, those shots.
I don't even remember where it started. Mátyás and I have been talking about this movie for a long time. You know, we've been talking about, and James Price as well, the production designer, we've the three of us worked very closely together. James was the art director on Southcliffe, and I said to him, I was like, you need to be designing. And so I think it took me a couple of years to convince him. So this is his first film as a designer, and the three of us have been friends for a long time, and so we really built this over time. And James just had so much knowledge of England at that time and what it felt like, and I feel like he was able to texturally visualize what I felt and what my memory was of
Lucky
it.
you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and I don't even know how we came to that. I mean, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of looking at stuff, and then I can't remember the conversation of how we got to the color, but so much of what Mátyás and I do now is just I don't know. I feel like it's just keeping it in its simplest form once we have a philosophy. So you feel like you're in a very specific world, but there's not too much style that takes you away from what's really important, which is the performance and the emotion and the relationship.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Rory might, like, I was thinking of Rory as somebody who, if you were in Atlantic City at a blackjack table, he'd have side bets, you know, and he's very much swing for the fences, bet the whole farm mentality. A substantial portion of your film deals with disseminates the financial climate, you know, the wealth and corporation, that world, but it is different. Like, he comes from a greed is good type background, but he's immersed in like this thing where there's strong philosophical differences. I was wondering if you actually did research.
Yeah, loads of research.
So what does that research look like? Are you looking at like a decade's worth of what a certain government did?
So I mean, it starts. I mean, it started with this feeling like the film starts with this idea of like, I want to look at a sudden move between England and America in the late 80s. And then I start to research like what would cause that sudden move, what would be the, you know, and I knew I wanted it to be Rory. I knew I wanted it to be Rory chasing his sort of dream life, you know, this life that he felt he thought would be the best thing for his family. So I did a lot of research, like what happened in what year, what was the financial situation, and you know, there's a privatization is a big issue in England, and in the mid 80s was the height of privatization and deregulation, and in 1986 in particular, something called the Big Bang, which is where they completely deregulated the markets and opened it up. Before that, only British companies could trade. And they opened it up, and so suddenly you had all these American banks and big international conglomerates coming in and taking over London. And so it was a time where, and Rory as a character, his backstory, even before I got into the research of this, was that he was going to go to America. He was someone getting away from what he saw as the small island, and he was going to go to America and get rich, and he did that, and then he would bring these values that were very celebrated. I mean, the big identifiers of that time were bigger is better, you know, be ambitious, be brave, take risks. It's funny, I don't really see him as a gambler as much as an optimist. You know, I see Rory as just an optimist who believes that every decision he's making, whatever the short-term consequences are, the long-term is the best thing for his family, and that this like great house and this countryside and this kind of English life that he's obviously so far from where he's come from is the thing to give his family. And so that felt like that was driving him, and so then the logistics of that followed too. Is like where would he choose to live? There's like, you know, a certain kind of house that most sort of sane brokers might live in at the time, and then it's like, what's the step up from that? And that's a place where James Price came in, and he's like, yeah, we need to be out of this realm because that's pretty normal broker, you know, commuter belt for London at the time. Let's go to that next level and find that next level house. And so
he's hoping that playing the part or inhabiting the part will essentially play out.
Yeah.
I find it interesting in his the character's timeline, because Rory on the onset is like we empathize with him. We see that he's a good father, that he's a good husband. I think there's a sequence. I don't want to really spell it out here,
Sure.
but the sequence where he's confronted by an estranged family member and his past.
Sure. Yeah.
That one, I empathized with him even more because I saw what he was running away from.
Yeah.
And yeah, how he wants to protect his own children from the childhood trauma that he's felt. So yeah, I really appreciated that that insert, I'll call it.
It felt important to me in a film that is about it's about parenting. It's about being a child. It's about being a parent. It's about what you're given and what you give, what you receive from a previous generation, what you pass on, and it felt important to me to have the symmetry of both Allison and Rory getting a glimpse of what they came from, what the values they came from, or what they were escaping, what they were losing by not being with their families, and so it felt important, to have that symmetry and just that glimpse into that place.
With this, so you've been making films for a decade now, and with Borderline, you launched there's so many great collaborations that spawned from this. I can think of actors who have worked with other filmmakers and vice versa. And so far, you've always written your own material, and I imagine that's very much a very important part of the process. I was wondering, what informs you on your creativity outside of cinema? Like, are you a politicized person? Do you like going to coffee shops and seeing how people interact? Do you train your ear for different music? Like what kind of a person are you outside of cinema, and how does that perhaps inform you on where the pathway that you want to go on in terms of your
that's
writing?
a great question. It's a funny thing. I mean, I think 10 years ago versus now, that's a very different answer. Well, maybe not very different actually, but definitely different. I'm a father now. I think we like to have a very slow life. We like to read and be with our daughter and write, and we live by the beach, and that's that's a big part of it. But I think I'm very interested in individuals and specific human behavior. Why people act the way they do, and also I'm also really interested in what people are interested in. Like I feel like I want to talk to anyone who's passionate about whatever they're passionate about. Like I could hear about anything. So I'm really interested in that, and like what people love and why. Their drive and what the drive is. Like it just and where people come from and what their experiences are, and like the deeper stuff, like getting to the deeper stuff.
Well, your characters in this film are very ambitious, and when it gets snuffed out, it's the most depressing thing.
Yeah.
And
I also really love sports. I love soccer, and
we call it football, right? That's the proper way to call it what it is, football.
And
is it because of the narrative in football?
I mean, as a kid, it was just all I wanted to do. And it was like had a ball at my foot. It's just like it was where I think I worked out a lot of emotion. I would finish matches in tears because I just would leave it all out there, and it was a way to express. And I think there's a lot of really interesting human element, and especially I think like the manager-player relationship, and you watch a team like the team that I support this year had a manager, and the team was just playing so terribly, and a new manager came in, and you can just see the spirits lifted, and you can see the individual communication that he gives them and the confidence he's giving them, and I think that dynamic is really fascinating, and also the way energy can change in an instant, and how a team can just you can be in a stadium and just something changes and energy changes, and it's like suddenly people stop thinking and just play, and everyone's on the same page of thousands of people, and it's like collective energy.
It's not that far removed from producing or filmmaking.
It's not. It's exactly the same.
You need a team, and
yeah.
there's the individual within the larger group as well.
Yeah, and also it's casting. Like casting is the same as picking your players. Like you pick people for the talent that they have. I think the best performances are when you cast the person who is. And you cast the person for whatever reason you think they're right for the role, and then you let them do their best work. You give them the freedom and create the environment for them to do their best work, as opposed to try and pigeonhole an actor into something you want them to do. You pick the right person, and that's what you want them to do the thing, but they're right because they get that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's the same with a player and a coach, I think.
A lot of people have to. A lot of actresses and actors have you guys to thank, and Susan obviously for
Susan Shotmaker.
Yeah, for figuring out the pieces of the puzzle. And it's funny seeing the Sundance lineup here, where so many of these people that start off with bit roles and quadruple M, let's say, are now major indie figures. So
it's nice. Amazing.
It's nice
Great
to see that.
Yeah.
Sean, thank you so much for your time. Really
Pleasure.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Eric from myoncinema.com. If you want to support us, subscribe below. For more reviews, interviews, film festival coverage from Sundance, Cannes, Toronto, you want to check out these guys on this side.